Hey everybody, Mr. Morrell here, and we're going to talk about homework assignment 2.4, solving multi-step equations. Now, if you've been following these videos, and if you've been learning about the different techniques, about the box of doom method and the fraction method and stuff like that, I really don't think this homework assignment will be too tricky. It should be okay for you, I think. But I'm going to go ahead and do this. I don't know if I'm going to solve every single problem two different ways. I don't know. I'll go with the flow, see how things turn out. All right. So when we talked about this in class, there are so many different ways that you could solve multi-step equations, especially equations that look like this. I mean, the idea is that you want to get variables on one side and you want to get numbers on the other side. And when you see an expression or an equation like this, you essentially just want to look at the terms. Every term represents a first step that you could take. So for example, if we wanted to get rid of this term right here, this 2x, the way we would do that is by subtracting 2x. If we wanted to get rid of this term right here, this 4, this positive 4 that's right there, the way we would do that is by subtracting, I hate writing on here, 4. If we wanted to get rid of this term right here, this negative 3x, well, the way that you get rid of a negative number is you add that thingy. So we could add 3x. If we wanted to get rid of this negative 1, remember that's a plus negative 1 there. If we wanted to get rid of the negative 1, well, we would add a 1. Okay, so a lot of different first steps that you could take. Now, if it was me, the step that I would take, and if you've seen my videos before, you would understand why this is, I would be adding 3x to both sides in order to solve this equation more efficiently. But any of these 4 steps would work at all, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to do my method. And so that's pretty neat. So again, along those lines, I have a reason for why I choose the first step that I choose, and I'm going to try to make that clear as I'm solving these problems for you in this video, but I just want you to be aware that you could go about this in a different way, and it would be okay. I'll still be your friend. Alright, let's move the page up, and we're going to go ahead and solve a couple of these problems. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to solve these problems on this page with the box of doom method. We're going to solve these equations. All of them will only have one kind of variable, so it's going to be easy. So the variable in number 2 is an x. We're solving these for x. I cannot fill in the box of doom until I only have one x in my equation. So kind of the same idea as up here. I need to get rid of one of my terms, and preferably one of my x terms, because then I can use the box of doom as soon as I only have one x. Now, the way that I pick which of these terms to get rid of is I compare the coefficients, the numbers before the variables. I look at those and I find the one that's the smallest. So I'm comparing a 4 and a 3. Well, 3 is smaller than 4, so I'm going to be trying to get rid of that 3x. And like we just talked about in question 1, the way to get rid of a 3x is to subtract 3x from both sides. Because it's kind of like I need to take away those 3x's. Okay, so that's going to get rid of that, and that's 4x minus 3x, that's 1x. You could write 1x, or you could just write x, it doesn't matter, they mean the same thing. And at this point, using the box of doom, I know that x is being added by 7, and nothing else is happening to it, so I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides, and finally x equals 11. I want to remind you it's so important, especially on these tough questions, to substitute things back in. Your answer is saying you think that you could replace the x's with 11s and that you'll get the same thing on both sides. So let's try it really fast. And maybe this is something you do on scratch paper or in the margins, but I just think it's a really important step, especially as you're getting ready for the test that's coming up, that this is what you do. All right, 4 plus 4 times 11 is 44, plus 7, and then 3 times 11 is 33, plus 18. Well, 44 plus 7 is 51, and 33 plus 18 is also 51. So yeah, replacing the x's with 11s is the only way to make both sides of that equation true, or the same. All right, let's come down here to question 5. We're solving for y's. I'm going to make a box with a y, but I cannot fill in the box of doom until I only have one y, so I know I need to get rid of this term here or this term here. You could get rid of either one. It really doesn't matter. But to me, it's easier to look at the smaller number, which is a 3 in this case again, and you ask yourself, how do I get rid of this 3y? Well, the best way to get rid of a 3y is to subtract 3y from both sides. So you're going to be left with 2 equals 4y minus 3y is just 1y minus 1. Well, y is being subtracted by 1, so we're just going to add a 1 to both sides, and y equals 3. Just for kicks and giggles, let me solve that another way. What if I were to get rid of the 4y first? Then we would have 4 plus negative 1y equals negative 1. And in this case, if we were going to do the box of doom method, we would say that y was being multiplied by negative 1 and then added by 2. And then we would do our opposite steps backwards. Subtract 2 from both sides. Negative 1y equals negative 3. And then divide both sides by negative 1. And y equals a positive 3 again. And I'll also just take a second and check my answer. I'm saying that I think that y equals positive 3. Well, let's double check. I'm going to replace my y's with 3's. 2 plus 3 times 3, in theory, should be the same as 4 times 3 minus 1. Well, we need to do multiplication first because of order of operations. So that would be 2 plus 9 needs to equal 12 minus 1. 2 plus 9 is 11. 12 minus 1 is 11, and that is awesome. Y equals 3 is totally the right answer. All right, let's go ahead and look at question 6. We're solving for z. I'll make that look like a z. And we have 2 z's, so I know I need to get rid of one of these terms. Now, again, a big trick that I teach my students is anytime you have a subtraction in front of a z, or in front of your variable, that's when I change the subtraction to say plus negative. Because I want you to realize that, for example, if we were just comparing a positive 3 to a positive 2, you would say, well, I know that 2 is a smaller number, and you would try to get rid of that variable that I just circled. But if you're looking at a negative 3 compared to a positive 2, then you would know that negative 3 is a smaller variable, and we would want to get rid of that term there. So, with that in mind, I'm going to get rid of this negative 3z. The way to do that, oh my gosh, I just feel like I'm drawing chicken scratches all over, is that we're going to add 3z to both sides. That's going to leave us negative 7 equals 8 plus 5z. Now I can fill in the box of doom. In this case, here's my z. It's being multiplied by 5. That's the closest thing to it. And then added by 8. Then we're going to do the opposite steps backwards. I'm going to begin by subtracting 8 from both sides. So that would be negative 15 equals 5z. And then we're going to divide both sides by 5. Z equals negative 3. So in other words, if I replace my z's with negative 3's, hey, that rhymes, then we should get the same thing on both sides of that equation. So let's just double check. I've got negative 7, and again, I'm going to keep it as plus negative 3 times negative 3, just because it's easier for me to see that way, equals 8 plus 2 times negative 3. Multiply first, we have negative 7 plus 9 equals 8 plus negative 6. Negative 7 plus 9 is 2, and 8 plus negative 6 is the same as 8 minus 6, which is 2. 2 equals 2. We got the same thing on both sides, so I know that that was the right answer. All right, question 9. Here we go, question 9. We're solving for x. I want to use the box of doom, but I have 2 x's. I've got to figure out which one to get rid of. Well, I've got this x term here. I've got this x term here. That minus in front of the x throws me off. I'm going to change that to say plus negative. And there's no number, so I can remember that's an assumed 1. Let's compare those coefficients. We have a 5x and a negative 1x. And also, let me say, the reason why I make these videos is so that you can pause at any point and tell me to stop talking just by pushing the pause button. And if you feel like you're ready with this hint that I just gave you to go ahead and try to beat me, do it. Like, pause the video right now, solve the problem on your own, and then you could watch my video and see if we solved it in the same way, or that we get the same answer at the end. I think that's a smart idea. Anyway, I want to get rid of this term over here because negative 1 is smaller than 5. Well, the best way to get rid of a negative 1x is to add 1x to both sides. Well, 5x plus 1x is 6x. So we have 6x plus 32 equals 8. Well, we only have one x now, so let's fill in the box. We have the x's being multiplied by 6 and added by 32. And we're going to do the opposite steps backwards. We're going to subtract 32 from both sides. Oh my gosh, this is hard math. I need a calculator. Hold on. 8 minus 32 is negative 24, so I have that 6x equals negative 24. That took care of that step there. And now I want to divide both sides by 6. Negative 24 divided by 6 is negative 4. And again, please get in the habit of checking your answers. You're going to be so happy, and your test scores are going to improve so much if you can get into that habit. And just do it on a scratch paper if you need to. But I'm going to go back and replace those x's with negative 4s just to make sure that I've got the right answer. Now, again, I still have this minus, and I'm replacing the x. Okay? So I need to make sure that I have those two negatives. That's 8 minus negative 4. Now, we've talked a lot about this, well, at least you've learned about it in the past. 8 minus negative 4 is the same as 8 plus a positive 4. Okay, let's come over here. 5 times negative 4 is negative 20 plus 32. And then we can do 8 plus 4 is 12. Negative 20 plus 32 is just 12. So we got the same thing on both sides of the equation, so I know that that was my answer. Alright, we're on a roll. Let's look at question 10. I know I'm solving for m. Make my box. I want to compare this and this because I know that I'm going to need to get rid of one of those terms in order to fill out the box of doom. There's an invisible 1 hanging out in front of here, so I say, okay, what's smaller, 1 or 3? Obviously it's a 1, so that's the variable I want to get rid of. And the best way to do that is to subtract 1m from both sides. So I'm left with negative 12 equals 2m plus 4. Let me fill in the box. M is being multiplied by 2 and added by 4. Why did I write that? Added by 4. We're going to do the opposite steps backwards. So my first step is to subtract 4 from both sides. That would be negative 16 equals 2m. Then I want to divide both sides by 2. And m equals negative 8. I'm not going to move on until I check my answer because even I make mistakes no matter how brilliant and handsome I am. So we're going to go ahead and replace the m's with negative 8. So I'm going to just replace that one. That's really easy. Minus 12 equals 3 times negative 8 plus 4. Well, negative 8 minus 12 is negative 20. 3 times negative 8 is negative 24 plus 4. And negative 24 plus 4 is negative 20. Why did I write that? Negative 20. I got the same thing on both sides of that, so I know that that was the right answer. Alright, let's go ahead and hop onto the back page. This is going to add a couple more steps to things that we were doing. Oh no, I'm running low on time. I want to be helpful, but I also want to let you do a lot of the work on your own. Alright, let's look at question 12. The big trick here with question 12 is we've got these parentheses here. I know I'm solving for x. Before I can fix this term and this term, like, I've got to take care of those parentheses. So that's going to be the Santa hat. We need to distribute this 5. That would be 15x plus 25 equals 4x minus 8. And once again, I've got two x's, and that's a minus. Ugh, writing on the iPad. I've got two x's. The one that is smaller is the 4x. So the way that I get rid of that 4x is I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. So 15x minus 4x is going to be 11x plus 25 equals negative 8. Now x is being multiplied by 11 and added by 25. So I'm going to do my opposite steps backwards. Let's subtract 25 first. Oh man, just to not make a mistake, I'm going to do in my calculator negative 8 minus 25. That's negative 33. So 11x equals negative 33. That took care of that step. Now I divide by 11, and x equals negative 3. And it's going to put me over my time limit, and I'm sorry about that, but I am going to check my answer, especially on this really big, tough problem. I think it's so important to check those answers. So wherever I see an x, I'm going to replace it with negative 3. So I've got 3 times negative 3 plus 5 equals 4. And notice I'm writing everything exactly the same, except I'm taking out the x and then replacing it with a negative 3. And it's really easy for me when I do those kinds of things to surround that x, or the negative 3, with parentheses. Now with order of operations, remember this. The first thing we need to do is take care of the stuff in the parentheses. So we're going to have 5 parentheses. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9 plus 5 equals, well, we can do this stuff. That's negative 12 minus 8. Then we've got negative 9 plus 5 because we still got parentheses, negative 4. And then negative 12 minus 8 is, negative 20. And 5 times negative 4 is also negative 20. We got the same thing on both sides, so x equals 3 was the right answer there. All right, let me give you a hint on questions like 16 and 15. In my last video, we talked a lot about fraction anxiety, and especially in this example where you see an x is paired up with this fraction, and this x is paired up with this fraction, I would highly recommend getting rid of that fraction first. There are ways to do this without doing that, but it can be a little bit confusing, and it's going to end up in a lot of fraction work that maybe you don't want to do. So maybe the first step on question 15 would be to circle that 2 and distribute it to these two pieces here, which would simplify to be x plus 4 equals 16 minus 2x, and from there you can solve the rest. I mean, another way that you could do it, again, I'd just like to give you options, is to divide this 2 by both of these things, or divide both of those things by 2. So you could have x divided by 2, which I'm going to rewrite as 1/2 x. Okay, it's like that invisible 1 just kicked the x off of the fraction. Plus 4 divided by 2 is 2, equals 8 minus, I'm going to add a 1 in there. Because like I said, you can still solve this in all these different ways. Some ways are just harder than others. We still have two x's that we've got to get rid of before we can fill out our box. And we have a negative 1 in front of this one, and a positive 1/2 in front of that one. So I would want to get rid of the positive 1x, or the negative 1x, by adding 1x. And now you're just kind of in this trick where you have 1/2 plus 1, and that is 3/2. But you see how when we leave the fraction there, sometimes it just kind of haunts us a little bit. So exact same idea here. You could kick the x off and have 4/3 x compared to the 1x over here. But for me, it's just so much easier to say, why don't I multiply all of this stuff by 3? Okay? And that is what we're doing when we do that circle trick. When you circle this 3 and, oh my gosh, what just happened? My fingers. When you circle that 3 and distribute it, that's all you're doing. You're multiplying everything by 3. Okay, so either way, that's your hint there. All right, let's look at question 17 because it's an answer that I'm giving you in the answer key. I just hit 20 minutes, so I'll try to make this fast. First step here is for me to clean up all of this stuff. All right, distractions out of the way. First step is we want to distribute, draw the Santa hat. Negative 2 times 5x is negative 10x. And if this stresses you out, remember that's a negative 1 right there. We're adding a negative 1. So negative 2 times a negative 1 is a positive 2. That's where so many people make mistakes right there. Equals negative 6x minus 4. I've got my two x's. Oh, hey, look, I'll use that box right there. I've got two x's, so I can't fill in the box of doom yet. But I've got a negative 10 in front of this x and a negative 6. Which one is smaller? Well, remember, a negative 10 is farther to the left on a number line, and so it's smaller. Like if we have our number line here, we have a 0, negative 6. Negative 10 lives farther on the left, so it's a smaller number. I want to get rid of the negative 10x. So to get rid of the negative 10x, I'm going to add 10x to both sides. So these will go away, leaving me with 2 equals negative 6 plus 10 is going to be 4x minus 4. And so x is being multiplied by 4 and subtracted by 4. Let's do the opposite steps backwards. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So then we have 6 equals 4x. Took care of that step. Ooh, this is going to stress some people out. Don't let it. We're going to divide both sides by 4. And so x is going to equal 6 over 4. And if you type that into your calculator, it's going to tell you, oh geez, what will that tell you? 1.5. Okay, you could write 1.5, but actually I prefer if you just simplify that fraction. And I'm not going to really go over simplifying fractions. If you're doing these level 3 questions, that's something you should remember. But 6 over 4 simplifies to be 3 halves, and this is how I prefer your answer to be. Okay, and, well, I said I wasn't going to do it. Let's do it really fast. 6 over 4, both the top and the bottom of that can be divided by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that's how I got that number there. Just a really quick refresher. All right, well, let me see. Am I going to give you... Oh, I'm going to let you struggle through that level 4. It is a really tough question, and I know that it's tough. There's a lot of different ways that you could do that. I'm not going to help you. I want you to be able to solve that yourself, okay? Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.